Happy New Year, everybody. It's a new year, but it's the same me. Might be unfortunate for some, but it's the same We're Live pal that you know and love. We have a ton to talk about today. But first, of course, I need to introduce my fantastic co-host. I saw Denise Salcedo's schedule for the week on social media today, and holy cow, Denise, how are you going to do anything non-wrestling related this week?
So I have a very strict schedule and it's been going pretty good so far. Like, it hasn't been terrible. Yesterday I started the podcasting. Today I continue the podcasting. This morning I woke up at 7 a.m. so that I could watch Wrestle Kingdom. So I have a very specific schedule of when I'm watching things, when I'm doing podcasts for things. And it's like, if I don't stick to that schedule, then I'm kind of like dead in the water. But it hasn't been that bad. I've even had time to exercise. I think it's just been like today, the fact that I just woke up earlier really helped.
There you go. All right. And the man who may he may no longer be a pay-per-view event, but he's still a premium live event, Andrew Zarian.
I'm a big fan of premium live events. Like, don't you guys remember, like in the 90s, Garrett, when like Mike Tyson would have a premium live event bout? Remember those days?
Exactly.
Or how about ordering WrestleMania on premium live event? What's going on, man? This is
amazing.
Happy New Year 2022. Unbelievable. We live in the future, but it's as terrible as you would have imagined.
What is a house show then? Just a live event?
Live events, no more house shows. Yeah.
But what about TV taping? Is it just a TV live?
The name of the show, yeah. Name it. You know what's funny? I saw somebody sent me a couple of weeks ago. Like, somebody sent me. It was all about pay-per-view business, and in that it listed premium live events. It was talking about what Triller was doing and like other online providers. And I was like, premium live event. I'm like, I have not seen that ever. I'm like, I wonder how fast people are going to pick this up. And just like that, it got picked up everywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, Denise just mentioned her schedule. She's a rigid schedule. She even got some exercising in. Are you doing anything new for 2021? It feels kind of weird to say that we have resolutions for 2022 because the coronavirus is still running wild and it kind of ruins everything. But Andrew, do you have anything you're doing to set the tone for your 2022?
Yes. I generally start the year off the same every year, where I diet tremendously, like unbelievably change my diet. It takes about 3 months for it to kick in. I look fantastic in the summer, and then everything goes down the drain by the end of the summer. So I'm just going to stick to my schedule. Obviously my workload was out of control for like the last 3 months, so I'm going to kind of balance out my life a little bit more. But my whole thing this year is just working out. I'm gonna get jacked up again.
There we go. I like it. All right, we might as well talk some wrestling here. So I think we should probably start with what was the big news over the weekend. WWE had their very first premium live event. I can't even say pay-per-view anymore. Their first premium live event, Day One. And hours before that show started, news started to come out that Roman Reigns was off the show after testing positive for COVID-19. So we got whatever the plan B was for that show, which was still a halfway decent plan, I thought. Brock Lesnar's added to the Fatal 4-Way, even though he's on SmackDown, but he's a free agent, so he could come over on Raw. And he wins the belt by pinning Big E, and he will now face Bobby Lashley at the Royal Rumble. Denise, when all of that stuff was going down, I'm sure you probably, in a sense, it's good for you because there's more news coming out of it. But what did you think about the plan B to all of this situation that was happening?
It definitely gave WWE Day One a lot more buzz than I think it had originally going into the show, because for the most part, on paper, it looked pretty decent. And I was already interested in the Fatal 4-Way. Obviously, I was interested in Roman, Brock, and all of that good stuff. But when you saw the news coming out of, hey, we're going to be adding Brock Lesnar into this Fatal 5-Way, it was very exciting to see that because everybody was wanting to see him in the exact same ring with Bobby Lashley. So people were excited about that. But at the same time, it was a little bit bittersweet because Well, on one hand, you're like, yay, Brock Lesnar's been added to this match. But on the other hand, you can't really celebrate because Roman Reigns has, has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So that is kind of like, damn, like you don't want to read stuff like that. That's unfortunate, especially given his, his health background and all of that. And, I don't want to speculate on any of that, but you can't help but to obviously think about that when you're reading those reports coming out. So it was like, oh, like this, this sucks. But on the other hand, oh, this rocks. And then the show itself, personally, I didn't really care that much for the show. I didn't think it was that good. I thought a lot of the matches were like really, really underwhelming. I mean, aside maybe from the opening match, that one was okay. But the main event, oh, I love the main event. I love the main event so much. I just thought it was so exciting. They did everything right. And let me correct that. They did everything right in the body of this match, but not the actual finish, because I still can't believe that they decided to pin Big E. So a minor tweak, had they not pinned Big E, I think that would have been the only thing they really needed to adjust.
So so I'm going to follow up what you just said. If they don't pin Big E, then wouldn't he have the rightful next match? So would you have rather seen Brock against Big E at Royal Rumble?
No, I definitely wanted to see Brock versus Bobby Lashley. Well, if they would have done Brock versus Big E, I don't think I would have been like upset at all. I think that would have still been an entertaining match. But if you're giving me the option of, hey, Denise, do you want to see Big E and Big E and Brock Lesnar, or Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley? If I really had to choose legitimately between those two options, I would have originally picked Bobby Lashley, whether or not knowing the outcome of WWE Day One. Regardless, I would have gone with Bobby Lashley, just because I think that that's just a match that people want to see. And even just the way that this fatal five-way was treated on the show, they had Bobby Lashley look really good throughout this match. Like, yes. Brock Lesnar was out there, killing people left and right. I mean, they were all kind of killing each other left and right, but Bobby Lashley kind of got the best of Brock Lesnar in that match. So for me, I kind of felt like they made him, they kind of built him up to sort of, be on a, obviously he's not on the same level as Brock Lesnar, but to at least be near that level of Brock Lesnar.
So, Andrew, when everything started to come down, you being the scoopsman that you are, what did you think? Like, did you start hearing stuff during the day, or were you just celebrating your daughter's birthday and got to hear it when we all heard it?
So I've actually, you were asking me before, what are my rules? One of my rules for 2022 is not to ruin my weekends. So I'm kind of quiet on the weekends now.
That's a good one.
I try not to sit on Twitter, but this Saturday was a great example of like how information trickles sometimes. So it's so funny because the text messages that I got didn't make sense in the order I got them. So I was first told, one of my buddies, he's like, hey dude, just want to let you know, Lashley and Lesnar's gonna happen. Right? This is before I knew Roman was out. I hadn't read anything. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. When? And then he went silent, right? Nobody was saying anything. Then it was announced that he didn't mention that Lesnar was in the match. He just mentioned that Lesnar and Lashley is going to happen at some point. So I was like, okay, maybe down the road, something will happen. Maybe Bobby Lashley will interfere in the main event. Something, like, I don't know. I was trying to come up with an idea. So they announced Brock Lesnar was in the match, and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. What the hell are they going to do? Because if they're going to lead to Lashley and Lesnar, it would probably be for a title. There's no way they're putting this title on Lesnar right now. It's gonna divert their whole entire plan going into January, and it really did divert the whole plan, because we're now finding out that this was not, obviously it was not the finish. Lashley wasn't going to win. Originally, I believe I was told early on that Lesnar, that Big E would retain, and then it changed to Seth Rollins. Yes. I believe Fightful put out a story that Seth Rollins would be the one winning the title.
Dave also wrote it in
mentioned
his
Sports
Illustrated article that went up recently.
Yeah, so I feel bad for Rollins, because this was supposed to be a one-on-one when it first started, and it kind of manifested into this thing. But it was interesting how information kind of spread out on Saturday about this. The thing I was shocked about is they pivoted heavily, right? And
that was me. Pardon me. Continue on.
Play it, Denise. I liked it.
No,
I liked it. It's a little drama.
when we got yelled at
What are you
on
doing, playing the
Slack,
piano?
nobody sent the tweet out. So I had to go on YouTube really
Oh,
quick to get
crap.
the link.
Sorry. Sorry,
So
Tony.
I was like, I'm going to click really fast and I should have pressed mute, but I didn't. Okay. But I just needed to get the link so I could tweet it out.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
I thought she was
everybody.
watching Cobra Kai in the background or something.
I
while we
was
were
hoping it
watching.
was like an ad. I was hoping that I could exit really fast, but clearly. So anyways, I'm just tweeting out the link. Ignore me. Continue on.
Live show.
So
live
part
show.
of this issue, I know, I love this stuff. Denise, play me out. Come on, play me out.
What? I'm still trying to get the tweet out. I'm
just
like
playing the piano.
tagging
This
you
is how
guys.
Wait, guys, is this how you play a piano? I think so, right? This is how you do it? Is this it?
Yeah.
I don't have piano playing skills. Apologies.
No, I have none either.
Mary Had a Little Lamb for you on the flute, but I don't got a flute, so
I could actually play "Oh Baby I Like It Raw" by ODB on the piano. That's the only thing I could do.
Oh, who's getting that reference?
not me.
Anybody
I
over the age of
pretended to laugh.
35.
Yeah, I think
So I'm seeing all this, and then I think the bigger question here, outside of the Biggie situation, obviously, I would have loved to see him have a long-term run. This isn't going to be his final title reign, obviously, for Biggie. He's super talented and beloved, right? Lashley coming into his own right now as this babyface, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I guess
Technically,
that's going to be interesting. And the thing that kind of throws everything off is the Drew situation right now, because he's out. He's hurt. He has a neck injury, right?
Yeah, which
Drew's
means
out,
Roman
yes,
has
Drew's out.
nobody to wrestle. Who's Roman wrestling
This kind of goes into what I would love to see. And listen, this is my personal opinion. I'm not a fan of the two titles, the two main championship. I hate the name Universal title. My personal, listen, there are people that love it. There are people that think we need two of them. I absolutely hate the name, and I'm not a fan of having two champions. I like the champion being on both TV shows, and it kind of doesn't dilute the title picture, and you're able to create more matchups than you normally can with one brand. But maybe it's time. Maybe you unify them for a little bit. You combine them, have Roman 2 belts happen, or Brock 2 belts happen again, and you go from there. I love when things kind of go awry and it falls into place. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a travesty that the match didn't happen between Roman and Brock, but I do think this adds a level of intrigue to their product now, because you're like, oh, wow, I didn't see this coming. Where are they going now?
Cancel
I like
Andrew
your idea.
Zarian. I hate your idea,
Cancel.
Andrew. I hate your
Thank you.
idea. So when we were talking about this show, Sean and I, a lot of people were mentioning the unification of the titles, and we were like, who the hell started this? Like, who started this whole thing? And people were like, oh, Andrew Zarian started it. So we started yelling at you on the show, and I think Sean yelled at you on Twitter or something.
On Twitter,
We were
he said,
upset.
please don't.
Yeah, we were
please
like,
don't.
what is Andrew thinking? Like, I don't
Am
want
I
to
the
see
only
a
one?
unification of the title. No, there's other people, but you were kind of the person, leading that charge.
I led the charge. Yeah, I've never, even when they did the original brand split years ago, I felt that it hurt so many matchups. And since we're talking about Lesnar, right? Lesnar debuted in 2002. This guy, from March to August, that's all it took for him to win the title. I feel like a lot of these matches that you would have seen with Lesnar in 02, 03, and even, 04, he was out. But for those 2 years, we got cheated out of it. We never got to see those combinations because of the brand split. I'm just thinking, like, let's say Roman has both titles, right? Let's say Lesnar has both titles. You're going to be able to see these matchups that you normally wouldn't, and I think it adds more value to the TV considering the viewership is down. It's just my own thing. Maybe I'm old school with this stuff. I think if you grew up on two titles, you're not gonna really care to have one.
So I think there's arguments for both sides. The one thing that I think hurts your argument is not the idea, it's the general execution. Because WWE would have to do two things in order to make this thing work. One, book in advance, which they're not great at, right? Because Vince is constantly ripping up scripts and not liking ideas, and then they got to sort of change things at the last minute. And two, create a secondary title that is actually meaningful. Because if Brock is on the Raw brand, let's say, and he is in the main event, there's someone facing him, and that's a big match. On the other side, on SmackDown, what do you have? Well, you would have to have a main event program as well, but using a secondary title in order for that to be a main event program. So those are things that they just don't do well. And, let's even go back. Like you said, the original single belt, what did they do? They were like, oh, what about Raw? Oh, Triple H, let's pull out this old WCW title and just give it to you. You don't have to win it. We're just giving it to you because we want that to be the storyline. They've never done a great job with this. They always fall back onto bringing the second belt back because of the reasons that we mentioned. But the one thing I would say, to your point, with the house show business being a little bit different these days than it has been in the past, you don't necessarily need both titles for house show reasons, because that was the other reason, right? Is you wanted a world title on both shows, both house show loops, but house shows are a little bit different and they're not the moneymaker that they used to be. So that, I don't think that is a necessity anymore. But Denise, going back to what you were saying, I want to hear your argument on why you are dead set against having a single title.
Well, you kind of already mentioned the fact that if you have both of the titles, if you have both titles unified, and then you have, the main champion with whatever they decide to go with the championship belt name, whatever, you have your one champion going between brands. Okay, that still doesn't solve everything else. It doesn't solve the issues that we're seeing with the programming. I think at the end of the day, regardless if we have one champion, if we have two champions, we still need to work on the roster and the roster depth, because we're talking about Drew McIntyre being out due to his neck issue and all of that, and hopefully that gets all resolved. But we're talking about that, and you look at the roster and there's nobody else. So even if there was the one champion going back and forth, why would you tune into SmackDown? Like, who would you even want to see that champion up against? Like, regardless of whether we have one champion or two champions right now, we have a big issue with the fact that there is no challengers. There are no challengers on that SmackDown brand to legitimately challenge for the belt where it's actually going to come across as credible.
I think it's a great point. Obviously this was not the plan. So, if the idea was to unify the titles, you would have done exactly what you said, which is create the stories on both sides to fit that. And that's not what happened. But what Andrew said also is, like, sometimes when they're forced to do things, it actually could work out for the betterment. So I'm actually interested. I'm very interested to see where they go for WrestleMania.
But this goes into a different discussion too, and I think it's cool to open it up, because I don't know how I feel about the brand split. I understand the reason why. I totally understand it. The roster's way too big for one roster. They need to split it up. They need to give new opportunities. It's a better way to create new stars. But with that said, listen, they got rid of 80 people this year.
Yeah.
2021. They got rid of a whole slew of other people the year before. So you're over 120 releases. I'm sure there's going to be more coming this year, because that's always been the statement that this is going to be a common thing. This is going to be an everyday, not an everyday thing. Let me just say that again. This is going to be a regular thing where you're evaluating your roster, seeing what's working, seeing what's not working, and removing talent from one set if it's not working, and moving things around. They have a very different way of looking at what works and what doesn't. With that said, how difficult would it be for them to have one roster for both shows? One set. I don't know if it's possible in today's WWE, but your main event picture totally changes then, because now you're able to focus on, let's say, the key 5 players or key 6 players on both shows, and kind of grow them and solidify them as top main events, rather than having maybe like 2 or 3 people on hand at any given time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a good discussion. Like I see it, I can see it from both sides. I would prefer, like you said, Andrew, of the one champion, but because that's what I grew up on. And look at AEW; they only have one champion, which is the A belt. Now, I think we think that Roman's got the A belt, but now maybe Brock levels up the belt that they have. But in AEW, you don't have that problem of saying, okay, who's the A champion and who's the B champion? There's only one. So Adam Page and maybe Bryan Danielson or whoever down the line, they are the top person. So I like that. It's more definitive. It's easier to follow. I could go all the way back to when I was a kid. I could probably go back, from 1990-ish and go all the way back for all the lineages of the WWF title, because there were longtime champions, Bruno and Backlund and Superstar and all these things. You could go back. I couldn't tell you who the last 2 or 3 title holders were before, Roman
Garrett,
Reigns.
That's something, and Denise too, and I'm sure you guys both agree with me on this, or maybe not. I'd like to know. When WWE over the last, I want to say 3 years, has taken away any emphasis on this guy that's challenging for the title on this random day could win. That is gone, right? If Matt Riddle challenged Bobby Lashley for the WWE title on Raw, which I think we've seen that match, there is nothing in your body that is telling you, oh man, this match, Matt Riddle could become WWE champion. It's almost an impossibility that you feel that way. I mean, they could kind of maybe pull you in on a match, but from the time that you're seeing
one
that
exception,
card show up,
the one exception is the Money in the Bank. That's the one exception.
The Money in the Bank. Yep, that's the one exception, because anything could happen. But you brought up AEW. I think for AEW's case, they have done a tremendous job at convincing their audience that every one of these matches is important, right? If Andrade is challenging Adam Page for the title on Dynamite, even you feel that is an important match. They have done a good job at telling you that those players are important players. And listen, maybe he's not going to win. The odds are he's not, but there might be a chance. They've conditioned the audience. It's all psychology. WWE has done the opposite, where they've conditioned you really not to care if this is a match on Raw.
Yeah, because they do like those dominant champions. Go ahead, Denise.
But I also think that part of the reason with that, and I have to completely agree with Andrew on that, is that you're not going to buy, this person is. I remember when they were doing Cesaro and Roman Reigns, and they were doing Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns, and all of that was going pretty good. And speaking for the specific situation with Cesaro and Roman Reigns, there were a lot of people behind Cesaro, but I never once thought, Cesaro is actually going to win, right? And that's one of those things where one of the major things that WWE, I think, needs to, bring back into their programming is legitimately the element of surprise. That has been lacking so much, where you go into these shows and you know what to expect. I mean, for the most part, okay, WWE Day One, okay, maybe not, maybe a lot of people, I think, once Brock Lesnar was added to that match, they were expecting to see him win. But then there were people that, like me, I was still not expecting it completely. So in that sense, I guess some people can argue that the surprise element is still there, but I don't think so. There has been, for example, I cover, every single show on a weekly basis, right? Focusing on SmackDown, I've had to miss 2 SmackDowns in a row because, for whatever reason. Okay, I come back. Yeah, I come back and tell me, did anything change? Did I legitimately miss anything? Was there a moment that, my God, I can't believe you missed it? I feel so bad that I didn't tune in to watch. No. So I didn't miss anything. Yeah. And I started to think I legitimately could take, I don't know, a month, 2 months off from covering Raw, and chances are I haven't missed anything. And that is a problem. And that, that falls in line with kind of an extension of what Andrew mentioned, with the fact that you can't necessarily buy a lot of people, actually winning the title. And that's due to multiple reasons. That's one, to a lot of people not getting credibility, only pushing, one person on each brand. And when it's not their time, nobody cares. We're not pushing them. There's a lot of issue. I don't think it's just one thing that needs to be resolved, because I personally do not mind the brand split. I like the brand split. I don't hate the brand split, but at the same time, it's okay, I feel that if they actually built people up and made you care about people and, put on a good product, that I don't think people would be complaining that we have this brand split. So for me, I just feel they're not fixing one thing isn't enough. They need to fix multiple things, but that's creative. That's actually building people up, making stars again. There's the whole element of surprise. There's just too much that needs to be fixed.
Well, hopefully for us fans and for the viewers, they will start being a little bit more creative as we get closer to the Royal Rumble, to WrestleMania. This is really where they usually get their gears turning. sometimes, not always for the positive, but hopefully we'll see that in the starting next week or the week after as we lead up to the Royal Rumble. So let's leave the WWE beat here for a second, because actually not technically, because we're still going to talk NXT, but I'm kind of excited for the next 2 nights of wrestling. Starting tonight, we have NXT New Year's Evil with Tommaso Ciampa and one Braun Breaker in the main event. And then on Dynamite, we get Adam Page, Bryan Danielson, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm pretty fired up for these next 2 nights. Andrew, you got the Electric Boogaloo reference.
I did.
Like when it
All right,
comes
now
to
you guys are just leaving me out of your references. I don't appreciate it.
Okay,
yeah.
Denise,
you know what? We got our
start
slap
referencing-
bracelets.
I'm going to start
got our slap
referencing some
bracelets
young,
on.
cool stuff.
No,
Yeah, please start talking about Taylor Swift. We're gonna just talk about Big Daddy Kane and old school rap now.
Well, I like it when Denise talks about like pop culture stuff, because then I know what I need to hone up my skills on to make sure that I know what's
I'm
going on
keeping
here.
you young and alive, Garrett.
Yeah,
young and alive.
Young.
I also
Unlike
have
me.
2 sons in their early 20s and 2 young stepkids, so I know certain things. I know who DaBaby is, even though I've
Also-
never heard a song by DaBaby. But
Garrett,
So,
remember
you know,
the
there's
other
2
day?
babies. There's the baby and there's little baby. There's
yes,
2 babies.
Exactly.
Remember the other day that we were all talking about ages and stuff?
Yes.
Well, I did a little bit of research, Garrett. I don't think
Okay.
you want to know the research that I came up with.
Oh, the
right.
research of how. Okay, go for it.
So you and my mom were born on the exact same year. That's all my research. That's it. That's all I've
That's
got.
fantastic.
Hey, you know what?
That's insane. That's
It
wild.
you know what? You know what
Right?
it means? It means is your mom is full of wisdom. She knows what the heck's going on. She lived through the 80s. I'm gonna have to meet your mom and
Yeah.
shake her hand and say, welcome. We're all from the same gang there. So okay, a little bit of a tangent, but let's talk about these shows. Andrew, I'm just wondering,
Yes.
am I overly excited? Am I correctly excited? Are you excited for these shows coming up? Because of what we do and how much wrestling we watch, and Denise mentioned Wrestle Kingdom, which we haven't talked about yet. We'll talk about it a little bit before we get out of here. But I'm overwhelmed with wrestling because we have to keep up with it in many cases. And there's even the Battle of the Belt show, which I think is kind of being completely overlooked. And, maybe it's a little bit of a lame duck show. But what do you like? Are you excited, or is it sort of it's just a lot of wrestling going on?
No, man, I am excited. I'm always excited for good wrestling. I don't care what brand it is, what company it is. I always look forward to some really good stuff. It's a good way to start the year. Started off with a bang. I know WWE is going to be on a roll for the next 3-4 months. AEW is getting, John Moxley back soon, and they're getting Kenny Omega back soon, and probably some more surprises.
Do we know
showing up.
that? Do we know that Moxley is coming back soon?
I don't have anything in stone, but I believe he's doing the GCW show at the Hammerstein Ballroom.
Oh wow, that is soon.
I believe that was announced, right?
It was alluded to. It was alluded to. Yeah, it was alluded to because yeah, because he's the champion and they now have the number 1 contender for the championship. So I think that was alluded to from what I read. And then also, but then you start to wonder, like, does that mean that he's going to come in back to AEW sooner? Because I highly doubt that he's going to come back and go. His return being on GCW, right? Like you would expect it to be on AEW. So I don't know. I'm just assuming that he might be back before that day on AEW. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would imagine, and you know what? I'm happy to see him come back. He's fantastic, and I think this is going to be a nice combination of talent that really you're loading up for 2022 for AEW's sake. I'm looking forward to Wednesday. Obviously, they're in Newark, TBS debut. It's going to be a big show. I would expect some sort of me personally. I would expect some sort of surprise to happen or something big to happen. Right? I think we could all assume that.
Yes.
WWE had a good show last night. I enjoyed the main event. They had a great start to the year with that pay-per-view. I thought it was a fine pay-per-view. I have not watched any Wrestle Kingdom because I'm so behind, and I was trying to catch up today. I turned it on, and I walked out of the room, and 3 hours later, I walked back in. That's how I watched Wrestle Kingdom this morning. So I'm a little behind, but I know everything that's been going on there. No, man, I'm super excited for it. I love it when we have a packed week with wrestling. I love talking about it. I'm not covering it as much as Denise is, so I'm probably going to enjoy it a little bit more than her.
Yeah, Denise, because of the angle of which you cover all of these things, are you looking forward to it? Are you looking at it like, oh my gosh, it's so much work?
No, I'm looking forward to it. And I think one of, aside from AEW being like the Bryan Danielson Hangman Page match, which obviously I'm looking forward to, aside from that, because I think everybody's already looking forward to that show, I want to put over Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill because their card for that is phenomenal. Like, I'm like, just, I'm pulling it up right now, but we already have like the Mickie James, Deonna Purrazzo. They're going to be doing a Texas Death Match. We have the first ever Ultimate X match, but for the knockouts, that's going to be fun. You're also going to be seeing Chris Sabin and Jonathan Gresham for the Ring of Honor World Championship. And there's still like so much more, going on the show. But it's just like,
Denise, just say what you said again about we're going to see the ROH Championship defended on an Impact show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
For like the first time ever. It's cool. Nuts, right? Yeah, it's nuts. Cool. Like, who would have thought? Like, who would have thought, at the end of the year, at the start of this year, that you would be seeing that. So I think that's pretty cool within itself. So there's that. And so aside from Impact Hard to Kill, I'm also looking forward. Honestly, night one of Wrestle Kingdom has not been that great. And granted, I'm still missing the last two matches. I've seen the entire show except for the last two matches. But pretty much for the most part, I wasn't necessarily all that thrilled about the show. I kind of felt that it was pretty underwhelming. So for me, I'm kind of like, all right, well, it's barely night one. So, okay, fine. But I am looking forward to night two and especially night three.
So we don't have to talk about Wrestle Kingdom much because you haven't finished the show. I know Andrew hasn't watched it. I will just say that in a similar boat as you, the last 3 or 4 years, I stayed up live to watch Wrestle Kingdom. Now, it wasn't always 2 nights, but there was one night. This is years ago, though. I had missed a couple times, but I want to say it was the last Okada Tanahashi main event before it was Okada Omega. It was me, my Fight Game podcast partner John LaRocca, and our buddy Dave Dutra, who wrestles out here in the Bay Area. He also recently did New Japan Strong. And we were watching live, and we're thinking like, this thing's going to go on till like 5 o'clock in the morning. How are we going to stay up? So we went to the local Starbucks and we asked Dave. We said, "Hey Dave, do you want coffee?" And Dave's like, "I don't ever drink coffee." And we're like, "Okay, so you're going to be fine." He said, "Just get me a coffee just in case." And so we all get coffees. We come back. Dave's the most awake out of all of us. We had guzzled our coffees. He didn't even touch his. That's how much Dave loves wrestling, or really good wrestling. So, but yeah, so yeah, it's to sort of what Denise was saying, not the greatest Wrestle Kingdom night one that you'll ever see, though the 2 main event matches will make up for it. And I am looking forward to night 2. I will not be able to stay up tonight. I will watch it in the morning tomorrow at some point. But, we don't usually get to talk New Japan here, so I just wanted to throw it out. Shout out to Jeff Cobb, who's really killing it right now and who I know pretty decently well. Love to see him doing his stuff. But just one thing to kind of piggyback, because Denise went to Impact. I didn't even have Impact on my list, so I'm glad Denise threw it out because it is on your list of things to cover, and it is important in the vein of pro wrestling. And, Impact worked with AEW, and they may be possibly continuing to work with New Japan. I know that the New Japan show is now going to be on Access after Impact, so there could be some more collaboration going on there. But give me one thing, Denise, as far as Impact is concerned, because we don't really talk about Impact on this show, but what is the one thing that you are like, this is the thing that I'm really, really excited for?
On the actual show, dude, like I mentioned the Ultimate X for the women, I'm really looking forward to that. Like I think that one's going to be very exciting. And even just like I love Lady Frost, okay? I just think she's incredible and I'm expecting to see a lot from her in this match too. And I'm going to pull up some of the other names too as well. Give me 1 second as I have that here. So Jordan's in it, Chelsea, Rachel, Rosemary, Tasha Steeles, but for me, Lady Frost, like given her like athletic ability, I'm really excited to see what she's going to do in that match. So that for me is the one that I'm most excited for, and also Deanna and Mickie James because they have been doing phenomenal work with one another as well.
So I have one shout out to some friends who do a podcast called Brace for Impact on my podcast network. The reason why I kind of focus a little bit more on Impact than I have is because of their show. So if you are looking for an Impact specific weekly podcast, check it out. Just search for Brace for Impact. All right, let's talk a little bit about this NXT show. I guess the New Year's Evil idea, I heard, Andrew, and you could sort of clarify this. Are they going to do limited commercials? So they're really going to pump, try to get this rating up, huh?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what it was because they gave me a little bit more detail and then posting it. Let me find the. So essentially, it's going to be. I was not ready for this question. Yeah, it's going to be limited commercials and picture-in-pictures. They're going to be doing a lot more picture-in-pictures than they do normally. I don't.
So that means we should see a lot of wrestling, a lot of ring time in the show.
You're going to see a lot of. Oh, here we go. Let me see here. So it's going to have limited commercials and 3 picture-in-picture breaks. So they don't want to cut away. They're treating this as a big show, which it is. It's not a takeover, but it's whatever that new version of the shows is for them. Listen, this is a pivotal show for them. The ratings, their numbers have been pretty good. I think people need to step back and look at what their actual viewership is. I talk to the people at USA a lot for other stuff, and it's always positive. Like they're not disappointed with the ratings. I say this all the time. I think a lot of the viewers, a lot of fans will try to be like, well, it's in the 600s. That's not good. I'm like, yeah, but it's virtually unknowns, and they were in the 7s and 8s before, and you had all this star power there, and I think they're hanging on. They're doing pretty good. This is the Bron Breakker moment, right? This is what this is all leading up to.
This is what I was going to ask the both of you about. Who's winning?
Yeah, I mean, who's winning? I mean, you would have... Unless, besides storyline-wise, they could come up with something. I think this is the moment that you do it with him. You want to test him. We were talking about how Brock Lesnar went from, on TV from March, and obviously 2 very different characters, 2 different people, but it's always possible. You had a guy that showed up in March, and he won the WWE title on a much larger scale in August, beating The Rock, right? Isn't that who he beat for the title? I think?
Yes, at SummerSlam.
Yeah, at SummerSlam. So you got to look at this and say, you know what? They got to make somebody right now over there. They got to make someone new. And he's obviously the man. He's the guy that they're going to do it. How they do it, I don't know. But they have to put that title on him now. He can't lose this match and be like, and come back next week and say, oh, I'm going to start over again and go for that title.
I 100% agree with you. Denise, what do you think?
So for me, I remember the first time we were going to have Tommaso Ciampa versus Bron Breakker, and I was like, I would be stunned if Bron Breakker didn't win. So I kind of want to sound, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I would be stunned if Bron Breakker didn't win. I'm going to say the exact same thing. But here's the thing, though. I do think if he doesn't win today, I kind of would have a little bit more hope for him actually going into the Royal Rumble and perhaps winning the Royal Rumble. That's the thing right now with Bron Breakker is that there's options, but I honestly think that this should be the time now. Make him champion already. I'm good with it. Like I'm ready to have the moment, and really like you just mentioned, like Andrew just mentioned, just really building up a new star.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I want to see
happen.
Go for it.
Can I give you my storyline for Bron Breakker? Okay,
I want to hear it.
Bron loses, right?
You might get yourself a writing job here.
Bron loses, right? Bron loses the match, clean in the middle.
Oh my God.
Come back next week on NXT. He's sitting in the locker room. There's a mirror, and he's looking at the mirror, and he's like, I don't know. I'm an idiot. How did I lose? And all of a sudden, you hear Scott Steiner's voice, and he's like barking at him. He's like just screaming random stuff. He's like, Uncle Scotty, I know. And he's just talking to him, but there's nobody there. So every time he comes in and cuts a promo, you have the narrator be Scott Steiner telling you his thoughts and like coaching him. And it's Rick on the other side telling him, don't do it that way. Don't do it. Don't listen to Scott. He's crazy. And you see this man kind
the
of
angel and the devil
destroyed
on the
mentally.
shoulder.
The angel, yeah, and like he doesn't know if he should be more like Scott or more like his dad. So he shows up with the ear protectors one week, and another week he comes up in the chainmail, right? And he's like losing his mind. And the whole thing is he's haunted by his family in his head until he wins the title, and then it all goes away.
That would be insane.
Perfect booking, right? You guys love it. I know everybody loves it.
Also, I really need that as a Netflix series now. Like, that's just what I need. Braun Breaker's life on Netflix, but with what you said, having the two voices and all of that.
He's in turmoil. He's seeing that shrink that they have, that fake therapist that WWE always uses. Like, he goes to see him, the one that Kane and Dana Bryan were going to. He's like, I don't know, Scott, my uncle's in my head. He's just yelling at me constantly.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, him and Randy Orton both have voices in their head. But, Johnny Ace, I think, has kind of been in charge of late, right? Johnny Ace, you might want to tap Andrew in and get some creative going.
Listen, I could come up with the most insane stories. Don't worry.
If we see this on the indie that you kind of have a piece in, we know where that storyline came from.
There you go.
Okay, so what else is on this show? I wanted to pull up the matches, and I accidentally pulled up.
I got them for you.
2022 version.
Bron Breakker, Amanda Rose, Raquel Gonzalez, Cora Jade, Walter, Imperium versus Riddle and MSK, and then not a match, but AJ Styles, Grayson Waller, confrontation, and then Carmelo Hayes, Roderick Strong.
The sneaky match on that show to me is Riddle and MSK versus Imperium. I feel like if we have an opportunity to see a match that could rival, and maybe it won't get enough time, but we know Danielson and Page too is going to be awesome. If there's going to be a match that I could rival that, I think it's going to be Riddle and MSK against Imperium. I just have a feeling that match is going to be awesome. So that's the one I'm looking forward to. Is anything, Denise, is that what are you looking most forward to on New Year's Evil?
I'm definitely looking forward to the stage match. I want to see MSK. I want to see Matt Riddle and Walter, have their little interaction. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm curious if Grayson Waller, AJ Styles is going to turn into a match tonight, or if they're going to save that for a later time. I'm curious about that. The women's match, I don't know if they're going to pull the plug and have Cora Jade just like surprisingly get a victory the way that they have been having her win the last couple of weeks. They've been having her get that, like, oh my God, like it just happened for her, like right timing sort of deal, or if they're gonna have Mandy Rose retain. I don't know. I definitely do not expect Raquel Gonzalez to come out as champion again. Carmelo Hayes versus Roderick Strong should be a good one. I think this is gonna be like I'm hoping to see like a breakout performance for Carmelo Hayes on this one, especially because he's obviously one of the favorites, and he does have some big shoes to fill as NXT North American champion, so that's going to be pretty good as well. And then that's pretty much it.
Who do we talk to get Raquel on the main roster there? Because she's I think it's necessary for her to go up there. She doesn't exactly have momentum in NXT based on the way that they're booking her, and she's good. I think she's going to be a pretty good player on that main roster. So we got to get her up there somehow.
I just realized when I was promoting my show, I forgot to put Carmelo Hayes, Roderick Strong on the tweet, and like nobody mentioned anything.
No, that's not good.
It's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
No.
Yeah,
and it's a big match.
Like, I completely forgot to put it. Yeah, I know. I just saw it right now because it popped up on my feed, and I was like, wait, nobody called me out on that. Oh, that's not a good thing. That's how, I guess, under the radar it kind of is.
And look, that could be a good match. Like you said, I think the expectation is it's a little bit of a breakout for Carmelo Hayes, and we'll see what they do with the two belts becoming one after we just said that they don't do a good job with doing that. But this is one of these belts is fairly meaningless these days. But all right, so I guess we should go back to last week, and I'm just wondering who were everybody's performer of the week. And I am going to avoid Rampage because unfortunately I still haven't seen the street fight that everybody's been talking about. I I've heard mostly good feedback, but there has been a little bit of polarizing feedback. So I don't have a vote from there. But my performer of the week, I think, now this is kind of like a little bit of a safe pick. After watching Brock Lesnar on Raw, after watching him at the pay-per-view, I'm going to have to give it to him because much like Denise said, I guess the feedback or the hype or whatever coming out of that show was big because of him. Obviously couldn't have been Roman. Well, Roman is tangentially related because of his absence, but I thought Brock did a great job in just being that guy, and they put him in a great spot. He had a really good match. He had a fun promo last night with Paul Heyman. So Brock is going to be my performer of the week. Andrew, what says you?
I had Brock on my list also, but I'm gonna give it to Bobby Lashley as well because he looked fantastic in that match. The one thing that was a takeaway for me was that that match, I thought it was like a 20-minute match at least, but it was really like 8 minutes, but it felt like it was 8 minutes.
Okay,
it was a really quick match. It was like 8 minutes 50 something seconds or 9 minutes, whatever it was. But I definitely, Brock is up there, and I'm putting Lashley up there because I think he looked great, and they've done a fantastic job at making him a viable threat for Brock right now.
So this is like become stories from Dave Meltzer's house, but I was watching the show with Dave, and so we were kind of like, I mean, complaining is strong because there was obviously an absence of one match, so they had to kind of fill some time, but that show was so heavy in the video packages of stuff we did not need to see. Bianca Belair is not even on that show, and there was a video package for her. Seth Rollins is in the main event, and they have like this babyface video package for him that is not related to the show in any way. And so we were just kind of at it going like, okay, main event, especially after that Miz and Edge match. If we had anti-performer of the week, I would have put Miz in there. That match was so boring. But
I agree.
So we get to the main event, and I look at my watch, and I'm like, Dave, what do you think? Like, this thing might not go very long. I'm thinking 10 minutes. And he's like, no, I think it has to go like 15 or 17. And then at the end of the match, I go, oh, what was that? Like 9? He's like, nope, it was 8. And it was perfect. Like you said, it was absolutely perfect because everyone was able, like, I don't know who was kind of in charge of putting the thing together, but sometimes what happens in those matches are not everybody equally gets to do their stuff, right? They did make Bobby Lashley feel stronger than the other guys, but that's because he's the next contender. But Big E got to do stuff with Brock. Seth got to do stuff. Kevin Owens got to do stuff. So that was a very impeccably put together, produced, whatever you want to call it, match, I thought. So I like both of those picks. But yeah, it was even in a much quicker time frame than even Dave thought it was going to be. All right, Denise, the floor is yours. Who's your performer of the week?
All right, so I'm going to sound like I don't have my own opinion and I just stole yours, but I was literally going to say Brock Lesnar, and then you said Brock Lesnar, so then I was like, all right, I'm going to say Bobby Lashley, and then Andrew Varian said Bobby Lashley, so I was like, okay, well, I have to go with Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. Like, for me, those would be the picks, period. If I'm not going to go with them, I'd probably also maybe throw in Kevin Owens because I thought Kevin Owens was really entertaining in that match as well, but honestly, it has to be Brock Lesnar or Bobby Lashley.
What about Migos? What did you think about their performance?
Not much. I don't really know anything about them, so I can't even say like anything really. I don't
I have
know
a big
anything.
question about this.
Yes.
I'm dying to know what they paid them because I know what their rates are because I booked them.
I was about to say in a couple of years you're going to have them at your club.
They were at the club a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you had them already?
I had the Migos. Yeah, I had Migos at the club.
Wow.
For Sins. Not the same club, a different club.
Okay.
But
6, 7 figures? Where are we at, Andrew?
I don't want to give away what they charge, but to do this in WWE, they had to have paid them absurdly. Unless there was some sort of weird crossover, like it was like a Peacock thing. I don't know if they have a deal going on with Peacock for anything. But
they didn't even plug anything, did they? They didn't plug a new album or anything.
No, but I mean, I would imagine that this was a very, very good payday for them.
Yeah. I mean, all they got,
They
that's
didn't
all I
even
could
do
see.
much.
yeah, they just got
That's
to
all I could see.
stand on the middle rope and raise their arms and do their Randy Orton
Because you got to pay
right?
3 of them. There's 3 of
Yeah.
them. There's 3
Yeah.
Migos.
Yeah.
Was there even any buzz for that? Like their appearance on WWE, like from their fan base? Did anybody see anything?
I saw nothing.
I didn't see anything either, but maybe I'm.
I mean,
just
it was the Atlanta tie-in, right? Was that the tie-in? Was just the fact that?
Oh, maybe that was a tie-in. Maybe, possibly.
But Cardi B was supposed to do SummerSlam, right? And so there's a relationship there, mom and dad there with Cardi B. All right, so before we get out of here, I just want to hear everyone's schedule. I just want to hear Denise say her schedule again. But what's going on? What shows? How can people find you this week? I imagine you're going to be on a bunch of different stuff, so let us know.
All right, so right after this, later tonight, please come back for that NXT New Year's Evil. It's going to be on this channel, on this network. You guys can check that out. Tomorrow, I will be doing, so tonight, NXT New Year's Evil on F4W. Tomorrow, I will be on Fightful talking about Wrestle Kingdom Night 1 and Night 2. And then I will be back on F4W to talk about AEW Dynamite. Thursday, I am off. Friday, I will be back to talk about SmackDown and Rampage on F4W. And then Saturday, I will be covering Impact Hard to Kill for Fightful. And then Sunday, I will be back on F4W to talk about AEW Battle of the Belts and Wrestle Kingdom Night 3. And then immediately after that, I will be ring announcing at LA Fights and then back to work on Monday for the normal schedule.
Wow. Wait, have you figured out how to buy that Wrestle Kingdom Night 3 pay-per-view yet? You got to go on like some different website and
I forgot
coins or something.
Yeah, you have to do it that way, but I still don't know. Like, I haven't even bothered to check, to be honest, but I'm like, I'll figure it out once the day comes. Like, I take everything day by day. Like, I don't worry about the next day until it's time to worry about the next day. Because then you just stress yourself out.
Yes. All right, Andrew, what is going on with Mat Men? And I know you guys did a year-end thing, so tell us about it.
So we did our 2021 best of and worst of. That's on the Observer website. We also did our prediction show. You can find that on our YouTube page or even gfknetwork.com. You could go there. We attempted to film our award show this morning, and we lost about 7 minutes of it. So I need to kind of fill in the blanks there and redo it. But we have a show Thursday morning, 10 a.m. East. We're going to be doing the show. Giving it some time because of Wrestle Kingdom. We want to kind of cover everything that's going on there. And then I believe Saturday we may be doing a Q&A show on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Just doing a whole bunch of content, man. It's a hot time for wrestling, and whenever you have so many good events happening and so many things happening, you kind of want to cover it as much as you can, because this is the fun time. When we enter that weird lull period where there's not much happening, it gets so difficult to kind of do as many of these. But man, we're just gonna be doing shows, and I got Observer Live on Sunday.
Yeah, what's up with Observer Live? You have a plan yet?
I don't have a plan. What are you doing? Do you want to be my guest?
I think once the football season is over, I will be a lot more free. I think one of my kids, or both of my kids, may come over to watch the game, and I think it's right during that time. But soon I will have tons of free Sundays to pitch in whenever you need me.
We'll figure it out. But we had a good show last week. We had Matt Ryan from Catalyst Wrestling on to talk about the state of the indies and where he sees it's going. And I think that's an interesting discussion to have because that's the thing that took the biggest hit over the last 2 years, and that's where that's where every company has sourced their guys from, their guys and their girls from. So if you don't have the independents being healthy, it's going to be less talent available, and the Performance Center can't be the only place that you're looking, really.
Yeah, my local indie, APW, the famous Roland Alexander on Beyond the Mat, the documentary where the WWE was a part of that. Roland Alexander has a thing there. That APW is the Bay Area, like the main indie. They still have not yet run since the pandemic started because shout out to Marcus Mack. He just doesn't feel safe. He wants to do it correctly, and there's stuff with buildings, and of course, being in the Bay Area, it's a little bit more strict than other places. So yeah, it's unfortunate because I would go to like 3 or 4 of those shows every year and haven't been. Okay, so for me, my show, the Fight Game Podcast, we are doing video this week. We pull out the video for special occasions. I couldn't do the video like Denise all the time. Like Denise, you are a wizard with that stuff.
You got to put
we're
your
gonna
makeup on, Garrett. Do your hair.
I know. Well, that's why I'm wearing a hat, because my hair is like so messed up and so long right now. But we're gonna do it because of New Year's Evil and because of the Dynamite on TBS with that big main event. We decided, you know what? This is a good time to do it. We're going to do the video going live at the time that we do, which is about 10 o'clock Pacific. We're not going to get a ton of people. All the East Coasters will be asleep, but we will get some dieharders on the West Coast. So check it out on this YouTube channel Wednesday night, 10:05 for the TBS little tie-in there, 10:05 West Coast time. And we titled this one, Fight Game After Dark. Get a little looser, may have an adult beverage at some point while we're talking. So check in with us. And then, the audio is going to be on the website like normal, like it always is. So it's just, we just have the video component as the difference this week. But, okay, I think we are done here. So for Andrew and Denise, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.